You know, some places just hold secrets. Secrets that are probably best left buried. They have a way of whispering warnings to anyone who listen, and unleashing absolute nightmares on those who won't. So today, let's dig into H.P. Lovecraft's 1921 tale of ambition, ancient folklore, and the horrifying price of disturbing the earth, the Moon-Bog.
Right from the jump, the story hits you with this. Right from the jump, the story hits you with this. Let that sink in for a minute. This isn't just a missing persons report, it's an erasure.
Lovecraft immediately sets this tone of profound, totally unexplainable loss that just hangs over the entire story.
So how did everything go so terribly wrong for Denis Spari? Well, we're going to follow his tragic story, from his big, ambitious plans right up to the terrifying climax. And after that, we'll peel back the layers, understand Lovecraft's influences and explore why this century-old tale is suddenly finding a powerful new voice today. Okay, so our story is all about this guy, Denis Spari. He's an Irish-American who struck it rich in the States, and now he's come back to Ireland. His big goal? Reclaim his heritage by restoring his family's old castle in this little fictional village of Kildare. But Barry didn't just bring money back with him. He brought this modern industrial ambition, and that would turn out to be a fatal mistake.
See, for Barry, just living in the castle, that wasn't enough. He looked at this huge ancient bog right next to it and saw wasted space, an untapped resource. His modern mind saw land to be developed and peat to be harvested for a quick buck. And that plan, right there, is the catalyst for everything that's about to go down.
And right here, you see the central conflict laid out perfectly. On one side, you've got Barry's modern industrial vision. Nature is just something to be conquered and optimized, right? But on the other side, you have the deep, ancient fear of the local peasants. They truly believe the bog holds dark secrets and some kind of guardian spirit. And when Barry just laughs off their warnings, they don't even argue. They just curse him and leave, abandoning their own homes.
So, with the locals all gone, Barry just hires a new crew of laborers from up north and invites our narrator, who's a friend of his from America, to come keep him company. And it's through the narrator that we really start to get it, that the peasants' fears weren't just simple superstitions. Oh no, they were rooted in legends that were centuries old.
And the folklore here is incredibly specific. I mean, these aren't your typical campfire ghost stories. They talk about a sunken city, a very precise curse, and secrets tied to the Partholonians, a group from Ireland's mythological book of invasions. Lovecraft is tapping into real Irish mythology here, which gives this bog a history that is just terrifyingly deep.
And this is where the bog's influence starts to creep in. It's not through, jump scares or anything like that, but through the subconscious. The narrator and all the new workers, they start having the exact same disturbing dream. A magnificent Greek city, and in the background, this faint, weird sound of pipes. The land is starting to communicate, and its message is deeply, deeply unsettling.
So all of this builds and builds to the night before the drainage project is supposed to start. And that's when all that simmering dread just boils over into this horrific spectacle. The bog is done whispering. Now it is ready to scream. It all begins with this ancient ruin on a little island in the middle of the bog. Our narrator is woken up by this intense, unearthly red light just pouring out of it. And this isn't moonlight, it's not fire. He calls it a deluge of flaring light, scarlet and sinister, and it turns the whole landscape into something alien and terrifying.
Then the sound hits. That faint piping music from the dreams, it's not so distant anymore. It's shrieking across the bog, and now it's joined by the beating of drums. The sound is maddening. It's hypnotic. It's basically the soundtrack to a nightmare coming to life. As the narrator just stares in total horror, the red light reveals something impossible. The ruin has somehow transformed into this majestic marble temple. And silhouetted against it, he sees these dark, dancing shapes just reeling in some ancient, terrible party.
And then, the final procession begins. The white-clad wraiths from the legends, they glide out of the bog. That hypnotic piping draws out all of Barry's workers, who follow like dog-like and brainless right into the water, vanishing one by one. The entire workforce is just consumed. Then the music stops, the light vanishes, and in the silence, the narrator hears screams from inside the castle.
Fleeing in absolute madness, the narrator sees one last sanity-shattering vision. A beam of light connects the ruin to the moon, and writhing up that beam is this twisted, contorted shadow, a blasphemous effigy of his friend Denis Spari, being pulled away into some unknown cosmic horror.
It's an absolutely terrifying story, right? But what's really fascinating is where it all came from. This wasn't just some random ghost story. It was the product of a specific time, a specific place, and a really complex set of Lovecraft's personal influences, and, his prejudices too.
This story was actually written super fast.
like in a single day, for a St. Patrick's Day dinner in Boston, which totally explains its Irish setting. It wasn't even published until 5 years later in Weird Tales magazine. But it's continued to attract scholarly attention for decades, with interest really surging again at the turn of the century.
Lovecraft's world building here is just fascinating. He weaves real Irish folklore about the Parthalians with this, well, now discredited theory that they actually came from Greece. This is his clever way of getting his preferred Greek architecture into an Irish bog. And here's the paradox with the peasantry. He portrays them as superstitious, which reflects his own prejudices, but they are the only ones with the true life-saving knowledge. Barry's downfall is a direct result of him completely dismissing their indigenous wisdom.
So why does a story that was written for a dinner party over a century ago still hit so hard? Well, a growing number of scholars are looking at it again, not just as supernatural horror, but as something way more relevant to our time: ecological horror. The key concept to understand here is ecological retribution. Basically, it's the idea that the curse or the monster in a story is really just a stand-in for nature itself, lashing out to defend itself against human arrogance and greed. And when you look at the story through this lens, it takes on a whole new meaning. This modern reading completely reframes the whole story. Denis Barry's plan to drain the bog is suddenly seen as an act of ecological desecration. The horrifying things that follow, they aren't a supernatural curse, they're the land's own immune system fighting back. And this interpretation is so compelling, it actually became the focus of a 2022 documentary that brought together literary scholars and environmental scientists to talk about how relevant this story is in our age of climate crisis.
Which leaves us with a final question. Was Lovecraft just writing a simple ghost story about an old curse, or did he accidentally create a powerful allegory for our own time? A warning that a bill always comes due for those who try to exploit the earth. The story suggests that when we ignore the whispers of the land, we risk awakening its screams.